Okay, we are live, and just so you know, I've got Instagram over here, trying to, get this out to as many people as possible. But we've got a class here. Will you shut that door, Kelsey, so that way we don't have too much background noise going on? Welcome to the Resilient Realtor business planning class. This is a class that, we're hosting because we believe that agents should be able to take charge of their business and become an unstoppable agent. So we are going live and in person. I have a class here that I'm going to use as my basically interaction. But if you are joining me via Facebook through the Resilient Realtor Facebook page, if you comment and you give permission to comment, I will actually be able to read your comments and we can answer questions as we go. So let's go ahead and get started and jump in to the class. So who am I? My name is Christy Jenks. I'm the team leader here at the Big Helper Realty Group with EXP and one of the founding agents of the Resilient Realtor group, where, like I said, this whole group is designed to enable and empower agents to just do better in their business. So as of course, if you are here in the Phoenix metro area, I am looking for agents to join my team. So you can learn more about my team at thebighelperrealtygroup.com. So let's jump into, I'm going to make myself smaller and we're going to jump into the content. So it's July and I've got two Shaunas in class. It's July and this is, we're a little bit past the mid-year, right? So we really need to be thinking in terms of how many months left of production do we have in 2021, right? If we're in July, how many months left of production do we have? 5,
right? About 5.5.
5.5, maybe even 4.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, right? Yeah. Like we've got quarter 4, which is 3 months. And we've got, 2 months left of this quarter. But when you put stuff into escrow in December, when is it most likely going to close?
January.
It's going to close in January, right? So about 4.5, 5 months-ish left in 2021. So I wanted to start this class out, and I'm gonna go fast, but I always want to answer questions. So if questions come up, I want you to ask them. But I can tell I've got 2 students here that brought some notebooks, so I want you guys to actually jot down a couple things. So first, I want you to write down what has been working so far. And as you write, I'm going to give you some ideas, okay? So what's worked so far in 2021? Look at your prospecting types, right? So from the business that you closed so far this year, what were the lead sources? Because I will tell you, that's working, right? Like if you're closing business from a specific lead source, write that down, right? So I've got a lot of past client repeat referral business. Okay, that's working. I just listed my 3rd canceled listing for the year. That's working, right? We implemented canceled and expired, I want to say quarter 2. And since implementing that, we've closed 2 and we've got one that just launched today. So that would be something that I would put in my it's working, right? So you're looking at lead sources, you're looking at prospecting types. Also, what's working in your calendar, right? Like what's working in your calendar? What's working in your personal life? Because it's pretty safe to say that we're not one-dimensional when it comes to real estate in our life, right? Like you're not just a real estate agent. I'm also a mom, I'm also a wife, I'm also a team leader and a coach for Tom Ferry International, right? So we're not one-dimensional. And so what's working, okay? And then let's talk about what's not working, right? Like, have you been not making calls and just sending text messages? Or maybe you haven't been making enough calls, or maybe you've done a bunch of open houses and you haven't set any appointments. I would say that's not working. Not that the open house isn't working, but maybe your strategy, Shauna went like this, right? Maybe your strategy. I'll never forget, I met an agent and he was a newer agent, and he told me that he had done something like 40 some odd hours of open houses and not a single person had even written their name on his sign-in sheet. And I mean, my face, like, I don't have Botox, so my face was probably like, it was, I couldn't believe it. And so immediately I was like, okay, when's your next open house? I got to see what you're doing, right? Because 40 hours with not a single lead, something's not working. So I want you to write down, are you tired and not waking up on time? Therefore, you can't get enough done. I would say that's not working, right? If you're getting a bunch of Facebook leads, but you haven't even spoken to a single person, that might not be working. The reason we want to know what's not working is because we're going to tweak some things, right? It's July, it's the beginning of July. We're really going to look at, okay, if this worked, and I'll tell you guys, it absolutely blows my mind. I can't tell you how many times people do things and they get really great results and then they stop doing it because they're looking for a new shiny object and they just pick something else. So that's how I want you to be thinking about everything we talked about today. Go back into your mind for the first 6 months of the year and say, okay, what was working, what was not working, and even go into your habits, right? Do I have a habit of staying up late? That might not be serving you if you are trying to exercise and do a morning routine. And you know what I mean? I have a habit of being negative and watching news. Okay, well, that might not help you because there's a lot of rejection in this business and you've got to have a really strong mindset or you'll fall victim to just being crabby too. So this is a functional business planning class. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take Shauna, who's in front of me, if she will agree. Yeah. Will you be my test subject? Yeah. Okay. So Shauna on the Gold Achievers group with EXP out on the west side of Phoenix Valley is here with us in class today. And I'm going to have her be my student to show you guys how to do this. Now, you will have access to this document that I'm going to share with you at bighelpertraining.com. So at the end of the class, I'll give you a link. You can go and get the Excel Google sheet that I'm actually going to use with Shauna here. But essentially what Shauna and I are going to map out is exactly how much business she needs by lead source, how many conversations and appointments so that she can, get the money that she's looking to do. And let me put on my do not disturb so that I'm not getting text messages during class. Okay. So it's important to be specific because if you're not specific, you won't hit the goals that you need. Oftentimes when I meet agents, they'll say, oh, I want to make $100,000, right? I want to make X amount of money in real estate. And I'll say, okay, well, let's backwards map that. What's the average price point here in the Phoenix metro area? It's like $349 is the median, right? But let's also face it, there is not a lot for sale under $350. So it's really, the median is $349, I think, but really like we're pushing upper fours and things like that just because of the market. Now, I remember when I got into real estate, we were so happy when we finally hit that 200 threshold. Wow. And then, now it's like, it's a different ballgame. So the first thing that people would do is they would backwards map what they need. I'm going to take it a step further and say, what are you willing to do? Because it's all fine and dandy to backwards map that, $100,000 is about 30 homes, right? With an average price point of, $349-ish, right? Okay, well, how do I actually sell 30 homes? Because I think that's what you really want to know is how do I do it? So that's what we're actually going to do right now is I'm going to switch and I'm going to take myself off the screen. Well, no, it's fine. I'm going to zoom in on this so that you can see it a little bit better. Okay. So Shauna, the sheet that I have and the sheet that you guys will have access to is what I call a functional business plan. We're going to talk about what am I willing to do? And based off what I'm willing to do, how much money will I make, right? Because that's what I really want to know. Not pie in the sky, but what's actually going to happen. So the top of this form is based on prospecting. And I've got like 6 or 7 different slots for prospecting. And the middle section is about follow-up. So let's talk about the difference between lead generation and lead follow-up. And then also let's just put a tag of marketing. So what's some examples of lead generation?
The ads. Facebook ads.
So Facebook ads would actually be marketing.
Okay, well, then my cold calling.
Cold calling, absolutely. So Shauna Jones says cold calling, that's absolutely prospecting and lead generation.
Well, I would call calling my Facebook ads prospecting.
That's lead follow-up. So
Okay.
this is a perfect example. So
Okay.
Shauna said, well, calling my Facebook leads. So marketing is when I spend money, right?
Mhm.
Or pretty much spending money, because if you were going to door knock, that's prospecting. That's
Right.
me actively going out looking for clients, right? Putting money on Facebook is marketing. When I get a lead from Facebook, I absolutely need to call that lead, but that's not prospecting. That's just me responding to your request. And so that's going to follow up in this section called follow-up. So when I get a referral from another agent or I get a referral from a past client, that's considered follow-up, right? I didn't generate that lead. I'm responding to however they came in. So lead follow-up is very important, but it's not lead generation. And let's face it, a lot of the money is made in the follow-up. It is. So back to prospecting and marketing, right? So if I do an open house, is that prospecting or marketing?
Marketing.
It's actually a little bit of both, but it counts as lead generation because you are physically there meeting people and actively at the open house, right? If I just sent out a postcard for my open house, that's just pure marketing. Exactly. So being there at the open house, you're going to market the open house for sure. But the act of holding the open house and engaging with clients, that is lead generation. Also, door knocking is also lead generation for the open house. An open house has 3 different ways that you could lead generate, right? So the open house itself, and what are 2 other things you could do to promote your open house that is lead generation? Door knocking.
And then, phone call.
And hitting the phone.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing about lead generation. It's really only done a couple different ways, right? It's either face-to-face through door knocking, event, in person like this, right? On the phone, and emailing is, that's not your most effective because you can automate a lot of email and you really shouldn't be in the weeds of emailing. I would use systems and tools, which I actually have a class coming up later in the series about systems and tools and software to systematize your business. So now that we've differentiated between prospecting, I want you to think I'm involved. I'm not writing a check to do it. I am actually the person behind the car driving that event or that activity. And then there's follow-up, which is I've got to respond to all the things that happened because of the marketing efforts that I did, or even the people that I met at the open house. After I meet them, they then go into follow-up, right? Because, we're going to follow up. So Shauna, let's talk about, I'm just going to give you the first one because this one's a little bit tricky. So one of the first things that I put in here as a type of prospecting is what I call your database, okay? Your database equals your past clients and your sphere, okay? So that, and it's really hard for me to see that when I type. So if there's misspelling, you guys just have to forgive me. So one activity that all of you guys should be doing every single week is spending time prospecting your database. Now, this is the only time that it's absolutely follow-up. And that's why I said it's confusing because you already know these people, right? Like you're already knowing these people. But when we work the lead pillar, okay, so the lead pillar of past clients and our sphere, when we work that lead pillar, it's because we're trying to generate referrals, right? So we're calling to connect with them. Today happens to be the home anniversary of one of my clients named Teresa Malo, who closed 3 years ago. And, so one of the activities that I will do today is call her and say, hey, happy home anniversary. That would be considered up top, right? Because I'm intentionally working on those relationships via two-way conversation, right? Two-way conversation is the key there because I can text her, and if she texts me back, that's okay. Because I have some clients that are, that are only texters. So I don't want to discount it. If you have a two-way conversation in text, that still counts. And so, but email, that's a little weak sauce, right? Like if you can call, text, or email, what's the highest use is going to be the call. The next one is going to be the text. So when you work your past clients in your sphere, I have a whole class next week on this. So you definitely want to attend next week's class because I'm going to teach you how you can have this lead pillar really, really work for you. So how many hours a week should you or are you spending on that lead pillar?
Should you? Maybe 5?
5. Okay. So I'm going to challenge you. By the way, there's no wrong answer.
Okay.
So 5 hours a week. Do you want to hear from your insurance agent every single month?
No.
So my concern is if you're spending 5 hours a week with past clients in Sphere, are you overworking them, right? Ideally, we're talking to them 4 to 6 times a year on the phone, right? So if you're spending 5 hours a week, you're going to burn through your database really fast and then you might overwork it. Now, there's a lot of different things you can do for your database, but a word of caution, when an agent tells me 5 hours, I'm like, at some point, your people are just not going to want to pick up your phone. They're going to be like, oh, you're just calling me for business. She doesn't really care about me. So you have to be cognizant of that. And with certain people, you will have a more high frequency of touch, and other people, you'll just have a lower frequency of touch. So at a minimum, when it comes to calling, I would say 4 times a year, that's quarterly, right? That's going to be quarterly. So you realistically, I see really healthy agents who like 50, 60% of their business comes from this lead pillar, spend somewhere between 1 and 2.5 hours a week.
Okay.
Now that doesn't account if you're, going to plan an event or something, those one-off things. But the week-to-week connection of making calls, text messages, writing handwritten letters, that can all be done within 1 to 2 hours a week. So let's go ahead and I'm going to just say that you've got 2. Okay. If you're also a brand new agent, I would let you know that you're going to spend a lot of your time building your sphere. So if you only have 1 or 2 past clients because you're a brand new agent, well, you can make that call the first day of the first month of the first quarter and be done for the quarter, right? You know what I mean? So what do? Well, you actually extend that and you look for people to add to your sphere. And we'll talk about that in my next class. So even if you don't have a large sphere, like you're just relocated here, or you don't have a lot of past clients, you can still spend this time building your sphere. So, like my friend Becky Hansen, we talked about how she dedicates at least 1 hour a week to networking, going to, a Pampered Chef party to meet new people, right? Dropping in on some sort of a luncheon, or there's a lot of things you can do to build your sphere. Now, the next question that it asks here in this column is how many conversations per hour? These are people who already know you, like you, trust you. And because of that, you're probably not going to get more than 4 conversations per hour. Like that's just how this lead pillar works. You don't get on the phone with a past client and say, 2-minute conversation and hang up. They typically tend to be a little bit longer. So what that really means is that in an hour, you might make 10 calls, 12 calls, and talk to 4 people, right? 2-way conversation. You'll leave a lot of voicemails, send a lot of text messages, and they'll get back to you. So now on a weekly average, you're going to be having 8 conversations from that lead pillar. So let's talk about another lead pillar. What else do you do to build business? You open house. I know you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
House.
So open houses. Now I'm just going to make I'm going to make some adjustments to this to weekly. So the hours per week might be like if you do 1 open house a month, then I would put 1 hour in here because we know that it's going to be 4 hours in a month, right? Mm-hmm. So what's your goal for open houses? How many hours of open houses a week do you want to do? Or month?
Month.
Like, do you do 1 open house a week or do
Yeah.
you do, okay, so that's like a 4 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's 3. She's doing a 3-hour open house once a week. And in your open house, and I know that sometimes we get like gangbusters, we have a ton of people through. So we're just going to kind of average a little bit because some open houses are really busy and some open houses aren't very busy. On average, as a group, how many people per hour do we talk to at an open house?
Maybe like 4.
So you get about 12 groups through your open house in a regular.
It depends on average.
Okay. On average, would you say the same thing, Shauna?
No, I haven't lately. I got 8. I counted last Saturday.
Through the whole open house,
And
which would
Morrison
be
Ranch, which
two
is-
ish per hour.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you?
I haven't done any yet, so
Okay.
I have no idea.
No problem. I find that to average, you talk to between 2 and 4 people per hour, right?
Mhm.
And again, some open houses are really busy. I have sat an open house that nobody came to, which is a shame, but I got a lot of work done and I was in a position that I could have met somebody.
Yeah.
So let's go 3 and we can adjust numbers later. And by the way, if you're not catching on, we track numbers, right? Numbers matter. What you track and measure improves. So moving forward, when you do your open houses, I want you to start averaging because you can come back into this form and you can say, hey, you know what? This is actually not accurate. I'm averaging way more or way less, right? The scale goes up and down.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else that you do or would be willing to do to generate leads?
Social media is not one. I guess that would be like marketing.
It's a little bit more passive. We'll talk about
Passive.
social media, but
Yeah.
so this brings up a really good point because then everybody gets stuck and they say, okay, well, what else can I do, right? There's only a couple ways. So outside of open houses and outside of working your database, you've got door knocking, calling expireds,
Yeah.
circle prospecting, like just listed, just sold open houses,
Mhm.
circle for sale by owners. I really can't think of a lot of other types. There's also agent to agent because that's a lead pillar, right? Is working with agents, especially here in the Phoenix metro area with so many people moving from California, Washington, and Oregon. It's very worth it. So do you ever door knock?
Yes.
Okay, so let's add door knocking. So she does door knocking. Now, how many hours a week do you spend door knocking?
A week, probably like 1 to 2.
Okay, so let's just go 1.
Mhm.
And on average, how many people do you have a two-way conversation with while door knocking in an hour?
In an hour, probably 5.
Okay, so 5. I think that's actually fairly accurate. So then do you make any other type of calls outside of not follow-up because we're going to get to that, but outside of your database calls?
No.
Okay.
Not right now.
Well, let's just leave that. But do know that when you're filling this out for yourself, you could add expireds. On average, you're probably going to talk to 4 expireds per hour if you're using a dialer. So just to give you guys some numbers, if you're doing for sale by owner, you actually can, it's almost 1-for-1 with for sale by owner. So if you've got 4 people to call, you're going to probably talk to 3 or 4 people. With expireds, you can call 20 people and talk to 4. Okay. So just know with expireds and canceled, your answer rate's a lot lower. With for sale by owners, it's a little bit higher because they are actually actively trying to sell their home, right? So they're going to pick up because,
What's the best way to get phone number or contact info for expired listings?
So the question was asked, what's the best way to get contact information for expireds? And to get the actual phone numbers, you need to subscribe to a service. There's a lot of different services. So there's Mojo, there's Landvoice, there's Vulcan, 7, and RedX.
I didn't think Vulcan was here.
Vulcan, did they pull out of Arizona? Okay, so in Arizona, then it's just Mojo, RedX, and Landvoice. And they're all, I would say, equally good. I really like the dialer though on Mojo is my favorite, and they don't pay me to say that, but I do like it. Okay, so those are just some of the things that you could add. Now, circle prospecting, I'll give you guys a number. So for those of you guys who are circle prospecting or want to add it as a lead pillar, circle prospecting is going to give you, if you're using a triple line dialer, which means that it's calling 3 people at the same time, you will get 10 conversations per hour because it's calling 3 times the amount. If you are hand dialing circle prospecting, your rate is going to be significantly less. Like you will probably talk to 1, maybe 2 people in an hour because you're spending all your time dialing, right? So when I would triple line dial and circle prospect, in a 2 hour, I would talk to 20 people and add 2 people to my CRM, right? As a potential lead. So just know that those are some of the numbers. So, okay, now let's talk about lead follow-up. So we generate all these leads and we need to dedicate time. A lot of times I'll refer to that as an hour of power. We need to dedicate time to call these leads. So how many hours a week do you spend following up with leads on the phone?
Maybe an hour or 2.
Okay, so currently she's spending an hour or 2. I will tell you that most agents should be spending, now if you're a brand new agent, and I know that you're fairly newer, an hour is probably all you have, right? Like that's all she has. So when you start generating leads, the amount of lead follow-up time increases, right? Like that, and it should, because if you're doing an open house every week, you're following up with those people, right? If you're generating Facebook leads, you're following up with those people. So as you generate more leads, your lead follow-up time expands. And so I always say, program yourself in your calendar between 4 and 5 hours a week. And if you don't have enough to follow up, do more lead generation. So let's just put in here 4. At a minimum, you're going to need 4 hours. Otherwise, people are going to fall through the cracks. And if you finish early and, you know, hey, kudos to you, you can finish early. Or if you don't have any business and you finish early, do more lead generation. That's just like, you know, when an agent tells me that, you know, they've done everything they can and I'm like, how many hours did you actually work? They're not putting in 40 hours. They're putting in like a couple hours a day and calling it a day. When you don't have any business, you just keep lead generating, right? Like that's what you do. 70% of your time, whether you're a new agent or an experienced agent, 70% of your time should be spent on income generating activities, which is these 2 top things that we're talking about. So with lead follow-up, it's very similar. You're going to talk to about 4 people per hour. The only difference is you're going to make 20 calls instead of, you know, up here with your sphere where you'd make 10 calls. You're going to make twice as many calls and talk to the same amount of people. That's just how lead follow-up goes, especially if you're generating online leads. You're going to make a lot of follow-up calls. Don't give up. You need to keep these people in your like call system for at least 30 days where you're calling and calling and calling. Don't follow up once and be done. It's like 15 times. So currently, Shauna, we're at 38 conversations per week. And let's put in some other numbers, okay? So before we make any adjustments, we're gonna put in some other numbers. So she's currently at 38 conversations per week, and we already discussed that the average price point in the Phoenix metro area is the median price. I'm just gonna go 400 as your price point because I know that's what it is here. And I'm gonna actually change this because there's only 24 weeks left in the year. I don't know if you guys know that. And actually, you're probably not going to work 24 weeks. You're probably going to work more like 23. Even if you don't have a vacation plan, realistically, you're probably only working 23 weeks. So I'm going to change this number up here, not to be 48, but to be 23. And so from here moving forward, following this plan, which is 10 hours a week, she's got 10 hours, 6 hours of lead generation and 4 hours of lead follow-up. Is that too much? That feels very doable, right? Like when you break it down like this, it's very, very doable. That will get you around 874 conversations. Now, you are a newer agent, but you're not really working cold leads. But because you're a newer agent, I'm going to put your conversations or contacts per closing at about 125. That will go down as you get better with your scripts. Like for Shauna Jones over here, who's been in the business a while and primarily works past client repeat referral. She did just add some new lead pillars. You're probably, Shauna, more between 60 and 75 just because of your tenure and because you know how to move people through the pipeline a little bit. Like trust me, your scripts matter because if you know the right questions, you can move them through. But it also matters on the lead source, right? Because you're going to talk to a lot of expireds before you get one, right? Versus if I hand you a referral, that's pretty much a slam dunk. Right? That's like one conversation per closing. So So roughly around 125 conversations. Doing this plan in the next 23 weeks, you would close 7 deals, which would be about 2.8 in sales volume and about 70,000 in gross commission incomes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's 10 hours a week.
Wow.
Okay. Is that good enough for you, or is that not good enough?
That's good.
Okay, that's good. Now you're on a team, so you got to take out, you can, if you're using this at home, you can add some extra cells, take out your cap, right? Take out your splits if you're on a team, those kind of things like that. So you can say, now, one thing that I'd like to point out is, let's say that this wasn't enough, right? Let's say, no, Christy, I really, really needed to make 100,000. I would come back to Shauna and I'd say, okay, there's only a couple things we can do. Are you willing to lead generate more? Right? So let's say that we just added for her and I said, okay, I just want you to call around your open houses too, right? Mm-hmm. So let's add circle prospecting. Okay. And if you just did circle prospecting, 1 hour a week, and you had 10 conversations from that, because you're going to use a dialer, well, you just got yourself another deal 0.8. So probably 2 deals, right? You just increased to almost 9 deals just by adding 1 hour of a, but let's say you didn't want to do that. Let's say you said, no, I don't want to circle prospect. I'm unwilling to do that, but I would add another hour of door knocking because, I'm willing to do that. Well, same thing. Like now you just increased the amount of money you made by $10,000, right? Because your average commission based on 400,000, and I did 2.5% just because that's really more like in our market. Yeah. I track the commission percentages. You're lucky if you get a 3. Some of them are even paying 2.1 and 2.2 and just 2. So again, you can adjust the numbers, but this is what we're dealing with. So one way is you increase what you're willing to do, right? Which is hours. Or you increase your price point, but that's really hard for you as a new agent to be like, oh no, I'm only selling a $700,000 home, and you push everything away. So as a newer agent, I wouldn't say, but as a tenured agent, if your price point's pretty low, you can work on getting it higher. And I will tell you that just over the years that my clients that bought at $250 and then sold at $400 and bought at $600, right? Like as you grow, your database grows, your price point increases too. Yeah. And then of course, where you spend your marketing dollars will determine that. But then the other thing that you can do is this number right here. So let's say that you really buckled down and you shadowed some agents and you worked on your script and you role played and you just got really good. And we shaved off, let's just shave off 10, okay? Let's shave this off and make this 115 conversations. So we're going to go from 8 deals to almost 9 just by getting better. Imagine if you could take off 25 conversations, right? Wow. And move that to 100 conversations per closing. And now you just close 10 deals. Conversion matters. The agent that did 40 hours of open houses and did not get a single person to sign in, poor thing, right? Yeah. And by the way, it's so discouraging. So this, I point that out because what you say matters and your approach. We did a class this morning. Go back into the Resilient Realtor. Becky Hansen did a class on open houses, and the people that were in class, we talked about some strategies. And with everything, with every lead source that you're working, your strategy matters. What you say actually matters, because it's the difference between Shauna here selling 10 homes and making 98,000, almost 99,000, or making 80,000. So $20,000 difference. So what is 30 minutes of your time role playing every day worth? Is it worth 20,000? Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, but yeah, it absolutely is worth it. And my friend Kyle Whistle, he's an incredible agent in the San Diego area. In fact, they're the #1 team in San Diego. He gave a really great scenario. He said, essentially we get paid like NFL wages, right? Like we get paid NFL wages, right? Just a huge amount of money. You're $10,000 a sale, basically, right? And the NFL players, how much air time do they get? How much game time do they get? Hours, right?
Yeah.
It's hours. But how many hours of practice do they put in?
Right.
They put in so much practice for hours of playtime. If we want the ability to make NFL type money, right? One of my good friends is a doctor, okay? And I teased with her, I said, tell me, guys, where else you can go for 90 hours and $1,500
Right.
and make $100,000 a year with no debt. So you make as much as doctors, lawyers, potentially NFL players, right? And you're not willing to spend 30 minutes a day practicing your craft so that you can convert better. If that's your attitude, you have a problem. So there's my soapbox. I'm sorry, I'll get off the soapbox, but I do think it's very relevant. There's only a couple ways that you can change these numbers up here, and that's either to put in more time, to increase your conversion, or to increase your price point. The one that you have, the two that you have absolute control over is effort-based, conversion and time. So that's why I say this is very functional, because this is going to, so for those of you guys, what I want you to do is I want you to audit yourself next, okay? So we did this with Shauna right now, and we talked about what she was doing and what we were willing to add to it. But I want you to audit yourself and say, okay, how much time am I actually spending? I bet you it will reflect in where you are at year to date. And if you're not happy with that, go in here and change those numbers. Figure out what's it going to take. If I just added, instead of doing 1 open house a month, what if I added 2? What would that do to my business? Is that an extra $40,000 in my bank account? Heck, that's absolutely worth it. Any questions about this document? Okay, so over here, I just put a little a little prompt on some lead sources, but also remember what I said, what you track and measure improves. And we started the class with what's working. So if you've been in the business for more than a couple of years, go back and look at your sales from previous years. Where did the business come from? Okay. And if you don't have business yet, but you're getting appointments, do the same thing. Where are the appointments coming from? Hey, you know what I notice? Every time I do X, Y, and Z, I get an appointment. What should I do next? Do that same thing, right? And do what works. Success leaves clues, right? Success leaves clues. So go back and look at what's working. Okay. So now, oops, I need to go back to my presentation. So now what I want you to look at, okay. There we go. So now what we're going to do is, we're going to actually put it to work. Okay. So I put this little, I want it to go bigger, which I'm using the plus sign. It's doing the opposite. You know what it is? It's making the side bigger and not the slide, if that makes sense. Okay. So we looked at your business plan right here. Okay. So she needs to get 2 hours of calling her database in her sphere. She needs 2 hours of open house. So let's go into.
And that's per week.
Yes, it's per week. So let's go into, this is so fun to do it blindly. Let's go into your calendar. So I didn't make little tags for all of this, but the first thing that would go in your calendar is your personal stuff. Okay. Right. Like the first thing that's going to go in your, so ideally you would not be looking at a blank calendar like this, right? I always said, hey, I teach Cub Scouts on Tuesday nights. That's blocked off. I'm not going to do an open house Tuesday afternoon because I teach Cub Scouts and that was, a requirement. If, I always joke and say you wouldn't forget to pick your kid up from, school mine are all bus riders. Do not waste time in parent pickup. But, so the first thing that goes in your calendar is your personal stuff. So you're never going to start off with a blank slate like this. But for today's purposes, I wanted to take you from there. So the first thing we said is you need to call your database. So Shauna would come in here and she would, in her calendar, she'd say, you know what? I really have time on Tuesday mornings to call my database. That's only 1 hour. So she's got to decide, okay, where's my next one going to go? So then she'd come in here and say, you know what, I'm actually just going to do 2 days in a row. And there's her database, right? And I put an open house on Saturday, but you could move it to Sunday. And no one says you have to do an open house on Saturday or Sunday, by the way. You can do an open house any day of the week. And if you have a vacant listing, do it every day of the week until that thing is sold, right? So I just put your open house over here. But what were the other ones that we need? We needed 2 hours of open house, and we need circle dialing. I'm just going to use expireds because I didn't make one for circle dialing. So she would come in here and say, okay, I'm going to do that, right here. Now, we actually talked about this in our mastermind this morning, but didn't really expand upon this. One of the things that I recommend that you have in here are to be determined appointments, right? Smart. So you're going to say, okay, I really want to do appointments here, and I'm going to find someone to do an appointment, here. And then I really want to get another appointment for Saturday after my open house, right? Or before my open house. So you want to put in appointment slots. She's got her 1 hour of calling. We've got our open house. Oh, door knocking. We didn't put door knocking in here. So we need door knocking. I didn't put door knocking, dang it. But then how many hours of calls did we say she needed, follow-up calls? It was 4. So she'd have 4 of these hours of power. So I'm not gonna actually drag all of these over because I think you get the point. Mm-hmm. But essentially taking that Excel sheet of how many hours it's going to take. The biggest mistake I see people make is they say, okay, I want to make $100,000 and these are going to be my lead pillars. They don't figure out how many hours it's going to take. So we did that. We solved that problem. But then they don't put it into a calendar. If you don't put your prospecting and your follow-up into a calendar, what's the likelihood it's going to happen? It doesn't happen. It doesn't, right? You just wander around. Yeah. And agents, I find, we all get into the business because we don't want to work nights and weekends and holidays. Congratulations. As a realtor, you work nights, weekends, and holidays. But we also get into real estate because I want to be my own boss, right? Mm-hmm. I want to be my own boss, and I want to be in control of my schedule. And so, soapbox time, just a little bit. I believe that as a parent, whether you're married or in a relationship or a single parent, there is no better career that you could have than real estate. Because you do have the flexibility. I want to go to my kids', recorder concert on a Tuesday in the middle of the day, put it in the calendar, right? I want to go teach art masterpiece for my kids at school. I can do that. A kid has a doctor's appointment. My daughter just got an ear infection, right? Middle of the day, doctor's appointment. I have the flexibility to do what I want to do with my schedule. The pitfall is most of us don't have the discipline to do what's up on the screen. We don't have the discipline to do the hours required to generate the business. So my mantra is you got to be disciplined. Plan ahead, right? I typically do mine on Fridays or Sundays. I look at next week. Like if I pulled up my actual calendar, 90% of my week is already scheduled out. I've got a couple blank spaces that I'm going to go back on the weekend and say, oh, you know what? I need to finish this project and I'm going to put it in there. But 90% of my week is already scheduled out. I don't leave it up to chance, because if I leave it up to chance, it's just not going to happen. And I'm not going to hit the 37 conversations that I needed, or 39, right? I'm not going to hit those conversations. And if I don't hit the conversations, I'm not going to get the appointments. If I don't get the appointments, I'm not going to write contracts. If I don't write contracts, I'm not getting escrows. If I don't get escrows, I'm not having closings, and closings leads to money, right? It's what we call leading indicators and lagging indicators. Your calendar is full of the leading indicators if you're going to make the money that you want to make. So just peek into your calendar right now at last week. In your calendar, like do a hard audit on yourself. In your calendar, can you spot the income generating activities that you needed to do so that you could make the money that you want? My guess is probably not, because I look at a lot of agent calendars and I will tell you most of them are blank. Most of the calendars are blank and people have no idea what they're doing. They've got it rattling around in their head, what they should be doing, what they could be doing, but they are not committed to it. When it goes into my calendar, I'm absolutely committed. Now, that's not to say, I will have a caveat. That's not to say that if I spent Monday in an hour of follow-up and an hour of prospecting for sale by owners, and I set an appointment for Tuesday, and the only time that person could meet was Tuesday at 10, I'm going to set that appointment. I'm going to go.
Of course.
Right? But I'm going to move that time slot to later in the day, or I'm going to double up on Wednesday, right? I'm absolutely going to go on the appointment, but I'm committed when it's in my calendar. I don't just blow over appointments I set with myself. And these are the appointments that you set with yourself, right? I know for a fact that Shauna would never set a listing appointment or set up a buyer's appointment and not go to that.
Right.
No matter what she had to do, if she had to show up, in her pajamas, she would do that to make sure, because she cares about that client and she stands by her word. But I also know that Shauna probably could put something on her calendar like call expireds and not do it.
Right.
And that's because we tend to not be integrity with ourselves. And then what happens is, if Shauna had this in her calendar, and I'm not trying to pick on you because we all do it, right?
No.
If you had this in your calendar every single week and you never did it, you lose credibility with yourself and you start to not believe yourself, right? Who's ever said diet starts Monday? You doubt your ability because you've proven to yourself that you're not going to do it. So my personal belief, this is just Christy Jenks here. My personal belief is put something in your calendar and be absolutely committed. But I'll tell you, like, if my kid got sick on Monday night and I knew that my whole Wednesday Tuesday night, I would go into my calendar and I would adjust it, because what's on my calendar Wednesday, I'm actually going to do, right? Like, it's okay to change your calendar. When you put a calendar together, that's not the final iteration. It's going to change because we set appointments daily. So don't feel bad if you have to move something. Feel bad if you just blew over it and say, you know what? I don't do that. I actually adjust based on the needs of what's going on in my life and based on the appointments that I set. So that was a long soapbox and I apologize. But people get caught up about time blocking, and I do a class on time blocking. Your schedule should be a living, breathing document, because we're always changing. And if your kid gets sick, heck, I was supposed to work out this morning and my dog got sick. So I woke up to a really horrible mess, right? Which changed what I was able to do this morning. I don't feel bad about it because I had to change it. It was like, stuff happens. So, okay. The other thing that you need to do, let me get back over to my slides, is, and I'm going to make this big. The other thing you need to do is, with these lead pillars, to take it a step further with business planning, you also need to go through and say, okay, what's my marketing plan? And this is for geographic farm. So I just gave an example here for a geographic farm. And you need to say, okay, what's my marketing plan? Well, I'm going to do an email newsletter. I'm going to do Google display ads. I'm going to do mailers. I'm going to do social media. I'm going to do paid social, maybe a billboard or a sign or something like that. YouTube ads, right? There's all these different things that you could do for your geographic farm. So you have to think marketing, right? Then you have to say, okay, what am I going to do for networking? Do I join the HOA? Do I join the next door Facebook groups? And are there any events that my neighborhood puts on? Because again, we're talking about geographic farm. So marketing, networking, then back to basics. What am I going to do for prospecting? And it actually comes back and says, you know what? I'm actually going to call the for sale by owners and all the expireds that come up in my farm. I'm going to circle dial into my farm, telling them what's just listed and what's just sold. And I'm going to door knock in my farm once a month, giving them a market update, right? And of course, open housing as you can. If you can do an open house in your farm, you always do it. And then you have to think about, what's my follow-up plan, right? Because we don't generate leads and not follow up. So for each lead pillar that you have in your sheet, right? And a lead pillar would be expireds is a lead pillar. Open houses is a lead pillar. Your database is a lead pillar. YouTube could also be a lead pillar, but again, that's advertising and not, or that's marketing and not lead generation. So for each active lead generating lead pillar, you'll want a marketing, networking, prospecting, and follow-up. So just to give you a quick example is that, if this was Facebook leads, which could be a lead pillar, a follow-up plan would be in your CRM, you have the drip campaigns, open houses, right? So after you attend an open house of mine, you're going to be put on my open house campaign, right? Which is going to have a video saying, thank you so much for coming to my open house. And I'd love if you could fill out this quick survey so I could give it to the seller. By the way, whatever, like there's like 5 different emails and a couple text messages that you get after you come to an open house, right? So that's something to be thinking about as you guys work different lead pillars. Okay. As you build out your marketing, your networking, your prospecting, and your follow-up plan, now all of a sudden you're going to have crap to do, right? And this is where a lot of us get caught in the minutia. Remember, I said 70% of your time should be spent on income-generating activities. Marketing stuff can be income-generating, but most of the time it's really not even in our wheelhouse. Like it's not something we should be doing, but we have to when we're first getting started. So here's an example of just breaking down what you need to do, right? So what will I do? I'm going to determine my geographic farm by when, right? I'm going to do the research this week. So by Tuesday, I will have determined the geographic farm. And then rank this by priority because you're not going to be able to do everything. If 70% of your time is spent on income generating, you're going to have to prioritize your projects, right? One of my mentors said it best. He says, prioritize your progress. Right? Like we're going to progress, but I can't do everything at once, especially if I've got multiple lead pillars that I'm trying to get off the ground. Slow down to go faster is what I say. So then I'm going to determine my budget for mailers. I'm going to schedule my postcard design meetings. And I always suggest that it's easier. I've been behind the ball and then trying to come up with my postcards last minute. Yeah. And I've also had it planned out for a quarter, and that's the best place to sit. Plan out your postcards 2 or 3 in advance so that you're not feeling the pressure of that. And then get a list, right? So I'd put what I'm going to do by when, and then I would rank it so that I could prioritize it. And that helps me move things forward. I guess I have to change my little icon because you can't see this online. But what the thing on the top says, you got to stay in massive action, right? So it's one thing for us to put this plan together and then never look at it again, right? So that's why I say monthly, you should be looking back at your calendar and auditing how much time did I spend on, on these different activities? How much time did I spend doing, open houses? How much time did I spend lead follow-up? Audit the hours that you spend and your contacts because they either go up or they go down. But once you get this plan, stay in massive action, come back to it. Your business plan is a living, breathing document. It changes, right? Let's say that you break your leg, you break your foot, and you had 5 hours of week of door knocking. We might need to change that for a different lead pillar. You know what I mean? Because is it likely that you're going to be door knocking with a broken leg? Probably not, although you might get more people to open up.
Yeah, conversation starter.
So are you just marking in this quarterly book that you have just on your daily schedule, everything that you're doing, and then take those numbers once a month and going back to see what you're actually doing?
Yeah, so Shauna asked a really good question, and I'm not sure what class I cover this in. It could be in my time blocking class that I cover this in, but there's a couple tools that we use on our team, and I'll post them in the Resilient Realtor Facebook group. We use an accountability tracker, and on our accountability, actually, I'll try to pull it up. We use an accountability tracker, and on the accountability tracker, we track our numbers, right? And then you do have to get them digital at some point, right? Because if you don't get them digital at some point, then, okay, so and then let me go back to here. Okay, so this is an example of my accountability tracker. We print these off And then at the bottom right here, you can see where we track our numbers. So we make these in Google Docs, and our operations manager, who, she just kind of makes sure we have one every single quarter, which is such a huge blessing. So they write in their date, they write in their goal. Again, we're facing the numbers every single day, right? Like, have you ever tried to lose weight, but you never step on a scale? Like, you can convince yourself that things are going well. Then you step on the scale and you're like, okay, wait, they're not. So we look at those numbers daily. But then we also have, some of the things that we're going to do, right? So we clear our email inbox. We do our hour of power. We use Sierra Interactive, so that's why it says there. But basically, going through your to-dos in your CRM, book an appointment, call for sale by owner, call all your people in your database that you're supposed to call because we schedule them out, and then report our numbers. So we actually do report our numbers daily. So during the day, we just mark our new conversations versus our nurtures. And then at night, we use an app called Sisu, where it's on our phone. I can come in here and record my numbers. There's a lot of different apps. For a solo agent, I wouldn't recommend Sisu. I would recommend a different tool called. You could if you use Monday. For a solo agent, I really like the tool CTE. I know your team uses it. Realtor. CTE Biz, I think is what it's called. Here we go. So for a single agent, this is about $30 a month, and it's an absolute game changer because it tracks all of your business like this in really beautiful graphics, but you can also track your numbers. So you can track your GCI, your volume. We have used it for years, and so you can even see multi-year trends. So it's really excellent, and the price is very low. So for a solo agent, and even for a team, I recommend this product. Again, I don't get paid by it. I just really, really like it for tracking numbers. It's a phenomenal product. So let me go back to my slides. Okay. So get in action, stay in action, do the small, simple things every day. They compound. Darren Hardy's one of my favorite authors, and he talks about the compound effect and just doing the small things. When we went back to her calendar, right? Like, it actually wasn't out of control. It was 10 hours. She had to find 10 hours a week. Well, if real estate is your full-time job, it shouldn't be hard to find 10 hours. 10 hours for $100,000.
More. Yeah. We only did that in 24 weeks.
Yeah, humming. Like, again, we should be willing to put in that work. So you got to stay in action. You got to put it in your calendar. So now we started the class with what was working, what's not working. And now I want you to create 2 more slots. And I want you to write, what do I need to start doing? And what do I need to stop doing? Right? So from a start doing standpoint, what do we need to start doing? We need to start using our calendar, right? I need to plan. I need to make sure that I know what type of lead generation I'm going to do. I need to be looking at my numbers, tracking my numbers, right? Maybe I need to start a new lead pillar, because that could very well be start a new lead pillar. Then we think about, what do I need to stop doing? This one's hard, right? Do I need to stop hanging out with people that are super negative because they tell me that I can't do things and then I believe them?
I need to stop looking at Instagram.
Do I need to get off of Instagram mindlessly, spending my time not looking at what I should be doing? And do I need to go to bed earlier? Do I need to stop staying up so late? Do I need to stop drinking because I drink at night and then I don't feel good in the morning? Actually, one of my clients actually made that. She said, you know what? I got to stop drinking at night. And she stopped drinking at night, and she was able to wake up earlier, and she felt better, and she was able to get more done. And it was like this whole, chain effect. Do I need to stop spending money on Facebook leads because I spent all this money and I didn't convert a single one? Right? Like, again, if we don't audit what's working and what's not working, then we're just going to keep making the same mistakes. And that's not fun. That's absolutely not fun. So one of my favorite quotes by Jim Rohn is, if you really want to do something, you'll find a way. If you don't, you'll find an excuse. And my friend Becky this morning, she brought up that old adage of who's more committed to breakfast, the pig or the chicken, right? And, and that's the difference between being committed and being interested. And I find so often that people say, oh, I want to do this. I really want to do this. But then they don't have the discipline to do what's needed to do. They find an excuse, right? My kids get so angry because they'll be like, Mom, I really want to get A's. And I'm like, okay, so are you committed or are you interested? Or my son who's 16, he likes to work out, and he's like, I really want to get this, this muscle to do this. And I'm like, okay, so are you going to play Fortnite? Or are you going to do the push-ups or whatever it is that he's identified that he needs to do? You can apply this quote and this principle to anything in your life. I really want to go on vacation, but I don't have the money. Well, are you interested in going on that vacation? Or are you committed? Because if you're committed, maybe you'll get a side hustle. Maybe you'll work more. Maybe you'll save more and you'll stop going to Starbucks in the morning. And you know what I mean? Like there's just so many different things that you can do. You got to come back and ask yourself those questions. So I also want to encourage you guys to go to the Resilient Realtor Facebook page. I actually just started an Instagram page too. I did my very first post this morning. So there's nothing on there, but I thought, well, we might as well have the Instagram page there too. But the Resilient Realtor Facebook group, there's about 5 of us founding leaders in here. All of us are committed to helping agents, take charge of their business collectively. I don't even know how many years of experience, but I can also tell you probably upwards of 2,000 units of transactions have been done between our founding members. And so, join our Resilient Facebook group. We're going to be doing classes almost every single week. I'll be teaching a series every single week. And then some of my other founding members, we've got some things coming up. So next week, we're doing a class on database management. It's going to be Friday at 11 o'clock. It'll be here live. If you're in the Phoenix East Valley, we're going to be at the forum live, but I'll also be streaming it into the Resilient Realtor Facebook group. If you have a topic that you're interested in, check out the events page, see what we've got coming up. But reach out to us and let us know, because we're happy to bring in new topics in. Also, some of our members are working really hard to get like a CPA in here, a tax attorney, because if you're not aware, there's a lot of tax changes that are in the works. And whether you like it or you don't, you should be aware. And so we're working really hard to get a tax attorney in here, to get an accountant to help you get your finances in order. So just come back frequently, because we're really looking to put some classes in here. And this is all free to you guys. All we ask is that contribute what you can. If you have a great idea, comment, be a part of this group, and just kind of stay tuned. So that's kind of my plug. For the slides, you're going to go to bighelpertraining.com. It's going to ask you, which class did you attend? You click on that, and then you'll see a little icon. You'll have, actually, Kelsey, these are not the new slides, so we need to update the slides. You'll have the slides for today, and you'll have any of the other resources that you need. And if you were invited to this class by an agent, definitely connect back with them. And, give them feedback. If you don't want to tell me to my face that it wasn't a good class, tell the person who invited you so we can get good feedback on this. But I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast. And for you guys, if you have any questions, we can stay in here and answer some questions.